All right, welcome back everyone for another deep dive. You know how we do it around here. We take a fascinating piece of writing, we break it down, and we hopefully uncover something insightful that you can apply to your own lives, whether it's, work or relationships, or even just understanding the world a little bit better.
Absolutely. And today, we're going to delve into something that I think is particularly intriguing. We're talking about trader psychology.
Oh, interesting. Trader psychology.
Yeah, and specifically, what separates those who consistently succeed in the market from, well, those who don't.
Yeah, I think we've all heard those stories,
Yeah.
right? About the people who seem to have like a golden touch.
Yeah, the ones who just always seem to buy low and sell high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, there's got to be more to it than just luck.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of psychology at play, and that's what we're going to unpack today. We've got this really interesting text snippet that digs into the decision-making processes of traders, and it highlights some key differences in mindset.
So it's not just about charts and graphs and all that technical stuff.
It's about the mental game.
The mental game. All right, I'm intrigued. So what does this text snippet tell us? Like, what's the first big takeaway about successful traders?
Well, one of the most striking things is that good traders are incredibly flexible.
Flexible.
Yeah, they're willing to change their minds, even about positions they've already taken in the market.
That's interesting because I think in a lot of areas of life, we're told to, stick to our guns, be decisive.
Right, but in trading, at least according to this text, that kind of stubbornness can actually be your downfall.
I see. So it's more about being adaptable, like being able to
Yeah.
shift gears when the situation changes.
Exactly. It's about recognizing when the evidence is telling you to reevaluate your position.
Okay, think about a time in your own life when you had to change your mind about something. Maybe it was a big decision, or maybe it was something small, like, I don't know, changing your route because of traffic.
Sure, we've all been there, right? Stuck in traffic, getting frustrated,
Totally.
and then finally deciding, okay, it's time to take a detour.
Right, even though you've already invested, time and energy into the original route.
And often, that change of plans actually gets you to your destination faster, or maybe helps you avoid even more traffic.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it seems like that same principle applies to trading. Sometimes you got to be willing to cut your losses or adjust your strategy, even if it means admitting you are wrong.
Exactly. The text actually gives a really interesting example about this. Let's say a trader believes that a certain tech company is going to have a breakout year, so they go all in, investing a significant amount of money.
Okay, I'm following.
Then some unexpected news breaks. Maybe a competitor releases a game-changing product, or there's some kind of regulatory change that impacts the industry.
Uh-oh.
Now, a good trader in this situation would take a step back and reassess the situation. They might consider hedging their bet,
Yeah.
Maybe diversifying their portfolio a bit, or even taking some profits off the table.
To minimize the risk.
Exactly.
Oh.
But a less successful trader, well, they might just dig in their heels.
Oh, I see. Even though the landscape has changed.
Right. They're so convinced that their initial assessment was correct that they ignore the new information.
Yeah, and that's how you get stuck. Right. Holding on to a losing investment because you're too proud to admit you were wrong.
The text actually talks about this too. It dives into the psychology behind why we sometimes cling to our convictions even when they're no longer serving us.
So is it just pride? Or is there something else going on there?
Pride is definitely a factor. It can be tough to admit we made a mistake.
Totally.
But there's also something called the sunk cost fallacy, which I think is really relevant here.
Sunk cost fallacy. I've heard of that.
So the sunk cost fallacy is basically this idea that because we've already invested so much time, money, energy, whatever, into something, we can't just give up now.
Yeah, even if it's clearly not working out.
Right. It's that feeling of I've come this far, I have to see it through.
Right. Even if logically it makes more sense to cut your losses and move on.
Exactly. And in trading, this can be really dangerous.
Okay, so far we've got flexibility as a key trait of successful traders, and we've talked about how things like pride and the sunk cost fallacy can get in the way. But isn't there also something to be said for conviction? Sometimes you got to stick to your guns, right?
Absolutely. Conviction is crucial, especially in a field as unpredictable as trading.
Right.
But it's about finding that balance between conviction and adaptability.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you develop that kind of flexible conviction?
Well, the text suggests that good traders have a few key strategies for mitigating those biases we talked about earlier.
Okay, so what What are some of those strategies?
One is actively seeking out disconfirming evidence.
Yes, confirming evidence.
Yeah, basically, instead of just looking for information that supports their existing beliefs, they force themselves to consider alternative viewpoints.
Oh, that's interesting.
They ask themselves, what could prove me wrong?
Right, so they're not just living in an echo chamber.
Exactly. They're constantly challenging their own assumptions.
That takes a lot of self-awareness, I imagine.
It does, and that's another key trait of successful traders. They're very aware of their own biases, and they develop strategies to manage them.
So it sounds like this is about more than just like technical analysis and market knowledge. It's about really understanding yourself and how your emotions can impact your decisions.
Absolutely. And that's something that's relevant far beyond the world of trading, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about how many times we make decisions based on fear or, our ego, or maybe even just because we're tired.
Right, or because we're afraid of what other people will think.
Exactly. So what's the big takeaway here? If our listeners could only remember one thing from this deep dive, what would you want it to be?
If I had to choose just one, it would be this. Cultivate a flexible mindset.
Flexible mindset.
Be open to new information. Question your assumptions, and be willing to change course when necessary. Those are skills that will serve you well in any area of life, not just trading.
That's a great point. And it's a good reminder that learning is a continuous process. We should never stop questioning, never stop challenging ourselves.
Absolutely. In fact, here's a little thought experiment for your listeners to chew on. Think about a belief or opinion that you hold very strongly. Now ask yourself, is this belief still valid in light of new information or changing circumstances?
Wow, that's a really good question.
It might be a bit uncomfortable to really grapple with that, but it can lead to some pretty incredible insights.
I love that. All right, well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. Big thanks to you for, as always, sharing your expertise and helping us break down these really important concepts.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration and hopefully self-discovery. And, until next time, keep those minds flexible.
Ray, keep questioning everything.